Island of the Blue Dolphins, chapters 13 and 14. Two short chapters, again, some exciting chapters here. So, last we saw Karana had built herself a safe little home. She used some whale ribs to build a fence and to kind of close herself in against a rock. She built some shelves. She found some food and was able to store some of the food. So, that's what she's got going on. And then she wants to kill the wild dogs. So she's working on a bow and arrows, and she wants a stronger spear. And she knows that for her spear, she needs a bull elephant seal tooth because they are very sharp. And that's going to be hard to get because she has to kill the bull elephant. So we're going to go ahead and get started here with chapter 13. So please follow along as I read. We're going to do 13 and 14 today, two exciting chapters. I did not sleep much the night before I went to the place of the sea elephants. I thought again about the law that forbade women to make weapons. I wondered if my arrows would go straight, and if they did, would they pierce the animal's tough hide? What if one of the bulls turned on me? What if I were injured and then had to fight the wild dogs as I dragged myself homeward? I thought about these things most of the night, but with the sun, I was up and on my way to the place where the elephants lived. The sea elephants. When I reached the cliff, the animals had left the reef and gathered along the shore. Like gray boulders, the bulls sat on the pebbly slope. Below them, the cows and their babies played in the waves. Perhaps it is not right to speak of young sea elephants as babies, for they are as large as a man. But they are still babies in many ways. They follow their mothers around, waddling along on their flippers, like children learning to walk, making crying sounds and sounds of pleasure that only the young make. And before they will leave the shore and learn to swim, their mothers have to push them into the sea, which is often difficult to do because of their size. Some distance separated the bulls from each other, for they are bad-tempered, very jealous by nature, and quick to fight over anything that displeases them. There were 6 of them below me on the slope, each sitting alone like a great chief, watching his herd of cows and babies. The cow had a smooth body and a face that looks much like that of a mouse, with a sharp-pointed nose and whiskers. But the bull is different. His nose has a large hump on it which hangs down over his mouth. His skin is rough and looks like wet earth that has dried in the sun and cracked. He is an ugly animal. All right, just kind of help you fill in some of these blanks. So we talked about this. The bull here, and he's got that big nose. It's the elephant idea, the elephant seal. The little babies waddling. Waddle, 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 waddle. Squish, 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 squish. So cute. Okay, and they've got their flippers. That's what it's talking about there. And then it's talking about his skin. His skin is rough, right? And he's an ugly animal. From the top of the cliff, I looked down at each of the sea elephants and tried to choose the smallest of the 6. They were all the same size, save one. Save one means except for one, which was the farthest from me and partly hidden by a rock. He was about half as large as the others, a young bull. Since no cows were playing among the waves in front of him, I knew that he did not have a herd of his own, and for that reason would not be so wary or quickly angered. Quietly, I let myself down over the edge of the cliff. To reach him, I had to pass behind the others, being careful not to alarm them. They feared nothing and would not move if they saw me, but it was better, I thought, not to put them on their guard. I carried my new bow, which is almost as tall as I was, and 5 arrows. The path was rough and covered with small stones. I took pains not to send them tumbling down the slope. I was also careful not to be seen by the cows, which get alarmed easily and would have warned the rest of the herd with their cries. I crawled behind a big rock near the young bull. I then got to my feet and fitted an arrow to the bull, although I suddenly remembered my father's warning that because I was a woman, the bow would break. The sun was far in the west, but luckily my shadow fell away from the young bull. The distance between us was short, and his back was turned squarely towards me. Still, I did not know where to place the first arrow, whether in his shoulder or in his head. The skin of the sea elephant is rough, yet very thin, but behind it are thick layers of fat. And though his body is large, his head is small and makes a poor target. While I stood there behind the rock, not knowing what to do, again aware of my father's warning that a bow in the hands of a woman would always break in time of danger, the animal began to move towards the shore. At first, I thought that by some chance he had heard me. I soon saw that he was on his way towards the cows that belonged to the old bull sitting nearby. The sea elephant moves fast in spite of his size, waddling along on his great flippers, which he uses like hands. The bull was near the water. I let the arrow go, and it went straight. At last, at the last instant, he changed direction, and though the bow did not break, the arrow passed harmlessly to one side. I had failed to notice that the old bull was moving down the slope until I heard stones grating against each other. Quickly, he overtook his rival, and with a single thrust of his shoulders overturned him. The young bull stood as high as a tall man and was twice that length, yet from the force of the blow he rolled into the water and lay there stunned. The old bull bore down on him, swinging his head and bellowing so loud it echoed against the cliffs. The herd of cows and calves that were lying in the waves and scratching their backs with their flippers stopped to watch the battle. Two of the cows were in the bull's path as he waddled toward his rival, but he went over them as if they were small stones. Using his tusk-like teeth, he ripped along a long gash in the young bull's side. The young bull raised himself, and as he turned, his small eyes shone fiercely red. When the old bull slashed at him again, he struck first and sunk his teeth into the other's neck. He did not let go, and the two rolled over in the waves, splashing water high in the air. The cows had scattered by now, but the other bulls still sat quietly on the slope. The two fighters paused, getting ready for a new attack. It was a good chance to send an arrow into the young bull, who lay on his back with his teeth still grasping the other's neck. But I hoped that he would win the battle, and I stood there and did not move. The old bull had many deep scars on his head and shoulders from battles he had fought before. Suddenly, he lashed out with his tail, trying to loose the hold of his neck, and struck the side of a rock. With his tail against the rock, he flung his body out of the water and thus broke away. He came quickly up the slope, his great mouth open, the young bull close behind him. He came towards me, and in haste to get out of his way, not knowing whether he was bent on attacking me, I stepped back. In doing so, I tripped over a stone and fell to my knees. I felt a sharp pain in my leg, but was quickly up. By this time, the old bull had whirled around and turned upon his pursuer so fast that the young bull was taken by surprise. Excuse me. Again, the young bull's flank was ripped deep, and again the force of the blow threw him backward into the water. The waves grew redder from his blood. By this time, he rolled over and was waiting for the charge. He met the old bull with his shoulder. The sound was like rocks crashing together. Once more, the young bull caught the other's throat, and together they disappeared beneath a wave. When they came up, they were still locked together. The sun had gone down, and it was so dark I could no longer see clearly. My leg had now begun to hurt. Since I had a long way to go, I left them. I could hear their bellowing as I went up the cliff, and for a long time afterwards. So if you've ever seen elephant seals, you know they're amazing creatures. Here's this idea of alarm, like, oh! All right. So I don't know if this is going to work because it's a video of a video, but let's see here if we can see this. I'm afraid of what this might do to my system here. Let's see if it's going to work. Elephant seals are just cool to watch them battle. Let's see if we can see this. In fact, earlier this year at Christmas time, I went up to California State Beach, Año Nuevo, which is just south of San Francisco. And my family and I, we got to see the elephant seals, and it was really cool. This is just a video from YouTube, but just watch this. It's amazing. Of course, we got the ad. Watch them fight here. Oh man, they just bite each other, slam, bite each other. Oh. All right, so looked like maybe that worked. Hopefully you saw that. So that's what the elephant seals are doing. And while this happens, Karana backs up and she falls. And of course, it was on her knee, not her finger, her knee, but a gash is a big cut. So she gets a big cut in her knee. All right, one elephant seal is pursuing the other as they keep fighting. The flank is the side, and they're slamming into each other and ripping at the flanks, the sides of their necks. So, all right, we're going to continue with chapter 14. 13 and 14 are both pretty short. My leg hurt so much by the time I had reached the house that it was hard for me to crawl under the fence and move aside the heavy rock. For 5 suns, I could not go out because my leg had swollen so badly I had no herbs with which to treat it. I had enough food to eat, but on the 3rd day the water in the basket ran low. 2 days later, the basket was empty. It was necessary then for me to go to the spring in the ravine. I started out when the sun rose. I took with me shellfish to eat, also my spear and my bow and arrows. I went very slowly, for I had to crawl on my hands and knees, carrying the food tied to my back and dragging the weapons. There was a short way to the spring, but it was over many rocks which I could not climb, so I had to take a longer way through the brush. I reached the ravine when the sun was overhead. The spring was not far off, and I rested there, though I was very thirsty, cutting a lobe from a cactus bush to chew on. While I was resting there, sucking the juice from the cactus, I saw the big gray dog, the leader of the wild pack, in a brush above me. His head was down, and he was moving slowly, sniffing the tracks I had made. He saw me soon after I saw him and stopped. Behind him was the rest of the pack, trotting along one after the other. The pack stopped too. I took up my bow and fitted an arrow, but as I did this, the big dog faded away into the brush and was quickly followed by the others. In the time of one breath, they were gone. There was nothing to aim my arrow at. It was as if they'd all not been there at all. I listened. They were moving so silently I could not hear their steps, but I was sure that they would try to surround me. Slowly I crawled on, stopping to listen, to glance back, to measure the distance between me and the spring. My leg hurt. I left my bow and arrows behind as I went on, for the brush had grown heavy and I could not use them. In one hand I dragged my spear. I came to the spring. It flowed out of a crack in a rock, and the rock rose high on 3 sides of it. The wild dogs could not attack me from any of these directions. So I lay on the earth and drank, watching the ravine below me. I drank for a long time and filled my basket, and then, feeling better, crawled toward the mouth of the cave. A ledge of black rock ran out above it. Some low bushes grew there, and among them, and with just his head showing, stood the big gray dog. He did not move, but his yellow eyes followed me, turning slowly as I drew near the cave. Another head showed behind him, another. They were too far away for me to reach with my spear. Suddenly, I saw a brush moving on the opposite bank of the ravine. The pack had split up and were waiting on both sides of the ravine for me to pass them. So just so we understand this, the suspense here, Karana, she finally got to the water, and the dogs are starting to surround her from all sides. You can imagine how terrifying this would be. She's already injured with her knee. She's all alone. These dogs killed her brother. She only has a spear to defend herself. And now all these dogs are surrounding her. The cave was now in front of me. I crawled to the mouth and into it. Above me, I could hear feet running and the cracking of bush, which was followed by silence. I was safe. I knew the wild dogs would come back, and they did as night fell, stalking around in the brush until morning, but not venturing close. Although the mouth of the cave was small, once you were inside, it spread out and you could stand up. Water dropped from the roof, and the cave was cold without a fire. But here I stayed for 6 suns until my leg was well, crawling out only once to fetch water from the spring. While I was living there, I decided that I would make the cave into another house where I could stay should I again get sick or hurt. And this I did as soon as I was strong and could walk. The cave went far back into the hill, around many turns, but I needed only that part which lay near the opening and which the sun could reach during some of the day. A long time before this, my ancestors had used the cave. Why, I do not know. And along the walls on each side, they had cut figures in the stone. There were figures of pelicans floating on the water and flying, of dolphins, whales, sea elephants, gulls, ravens, dogs, and foxes. Near the opening of the cave, they had also cut 2 deep basins into the stone, which I decided to use for storing water, since they held much more than the baskets. I made shelves in the side of the rock, as I had done in the other house, and gathered shellfish and seeds to store there. I also gathered herbs from the hill above the spring in case I should need them. The bow and arrows I had first made, I likewise took to the cave. And the last, after I made a good bed of seaweed and collected dry wood for my fires, I closed the opening with stones, except for a small hole at the top which I could crawl through. As I did this, thinking of the days I had been sick and without water. It was hard work, much of it man's work, but not until I finished did I go back to the place where the sea elephants lived. The tide was low when I reached it. Far up on the slope lay the body of the old bull. Gulls had picked his bones clean, but I found what I had come for. Some of the teeth were as long as my hand and half its width. They were curved at the tops, and some were broken, but when I had ground the best of them down with sand, I had for my work 4 good spear points, broad at the bottom and very sharp at the ends. I made 2 more spears from these points, and at last was ready to go to the cave of the wild dogs. Dun, dun, dun. So her knee is swollen. So hopefully from this picture, you can see on the left, it's really big, and on the right, it's kind of normal. So her knee is really swollen and hurt. Herbs, these are just different things. We use these in our cooking all the time, different spices and things. So they grow naturally, and she's just picking them. All right, the big gray dog looks very similar to the picture on the back of the book here. All right, so she was injured for 6 suns. She stayed there because her leg was hurting. All right, cut figures into the stones. She sees all of these decorations in the cave that her ancestors had made. So here's what happened, just as a review. Karana wanted to get a elephant seal tooth, so she goes down to the beach and she sees them fighting, but she hurts her knee. She goes back home, but she runs out of water, and so she has to go to the other cave. And there, the dogs start stalking and surrounding her because they're going to attack her. So she goes into this cave, and she realizes this could be a good second cave. If for some reason I can't stay there, or I hurt myself, or I get sick, I can stay here and this will be a good second home. So she makes it a total backup. There's food, there's water, there's supplies. So now she's got 2 homes that are completely set up and ready to go. All right, once she gets the home set up, she goes back to the beach and she sees the old dead elephant seal. And now that he's dead, it's easy to take his teeth. So she takes out his teeth and she uses those teeth to make them into spear points and puts them on her spear. And now she's going to the cave of the wild dogs. And now she's going to go kill the wild dogs. All right, that's pretty good. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for following along. Talk to you later, guys.